The first whistle came from somewhere behind our campsite. By itself, it didn't seem strange. Forests carry sound in weird ways, and I figured it was another group of campers trying to locate each other. But then my friend Tyler looked up from the fire and quietly asked, "Which one of you just whistled?" None of us answered, because none of us had. Looking back now, I wish we'd packed up right then and driven home. This happened in October of 2023 at Black Ridge National Forest. It was supposed to be one last camping trip before winter. There were 4 of us: me, Tyler, Mason, and Chris. We'd found a remote campsite nearly 2 miles from the nearest access road after hiking in that afternoon. It was exactly what we wanted. No crowds, no cell service, and nothing but trees stretching in every direction. The ranger at the entrance had reminded us to stay on marked trails and not wander after dark. We assumed he was talking about bears or getting lost. Now I wonder if he meant something else. By sunset, we'd finished dinner and were sitting around the fire telling stupid stories. The forest had gone unusually quiet. Even the insects seemed to disappear. That's when we heard the whistle. It was short, just 3 clear notes. Tyler stood up and shined his flashlight toward the trees. "Probably another campsite," Mason said. I wanted to believe him. Then, about 20 seconds later, another whistle answered. This one came from the opposite direction. We all looked at each other. Chris laughed nervously. "Okay, that's weird." No one laughed with him. Tyler called out, "Hello?" Nothing. Only silence. A silence so complete that the crackling fire suddenly sounded far too loud. We tried to ignore it, but the mood had changed. Nobody wanted to admit they were uncomfortable, so we kept talking, although every few seconds one of us would glance toward the darkness beyond the firelight. About 10 minutes later, we heard it again. 3 notes. Closer this time. Not close enough to see anyone. Just close enough to know whoever made it wasn't far away. Tyler grabbed the brightest flashlight we had. "I'm going to check." Chris immediately stood. "I'm coming with you." I wanted to stop them, but I also didn't want to sit there wondering. The 2 disappeared between the trees, while Mason and I stayed behind. The forest swallowed their lights almost immediately. For a full minute, neither of us said anything. Then we heard another whistle. Not from where they'd gone. From behind us. I turned so quickly I nearly knocked over the camping stove. The sound had come from somewhere only a few yards beyond the tents. "Mason." I heard it. His voice had lost all confidence. We searched with our flashlights, but the beams only caught trunks, branches, and drifting fog. Then Tyler yelled. Not screaming. Just shouting. "Guys!" His voice sounded farther away than it should have. We grabbed our lights and ran toward him. When we found them, both Tyler and Chris were standing beside a tree, staring at the ground. There were footprints in the mud. Bare footprints. The strange part wasn't that someone had been there. It was that the prints stopped halfway across the clearing. No return tracks. No continuation. Just a line of muddy footprints that ended as though the person had vanished. Chris whispered. Maybe they stepped onto a rock. We searched every direction. Nothing. No more prints. No broken branches. No sign of anyone leaving. Just those impossible tracks ending in the middle of nowhere. None of us wanted to admit how unsettled we felt, but nobody suggested staying out there any longer. We hurried back to camp. The fire had burned lower. At first, everything looked untouched. Then Mason froze. My backpack. It was lying about 15 feet away from where he'd left it. The zipper was open. His flashlight, map, and first aid kit were missing. We searched the area with every light we had. No gear. No footprints. Nothing. Just before midnight, we decided we'd leave as soon as it was light enough to hike safely. Nobody slept. We kept the fire going and sat facing the trees. Around 3 in the morning, the whistles came back. This time there weren't just one or two. They came from every direction. Always 3 notes. Never overlapping. Almost as if different people were answering each other. And every time one whistle ended, another started a little closer. None of us spoke. We simply listened as those unseen voices slowly circled our campsite in the darkness, getting closer with each passing minute. The fire was still burning, not roaring, not even crackling loudly, just a bed of glowing orange embers, quietly fading beneath a pile of fresh ash. The problem was, according to every map I had, I was completely alone. I stood there for several seconds, staring at the fire pit in disbelief. Someone had been here recently, close enough that the wood was still warm, but there wasn't a single person in sight. I should have turned around and left. Instead, I convinced myself I was overreacting. Last September, I decided to spend a weekend hiking through Pine Hollow State Forest. I had recently started backpacking alone, mostly because I enjoyed the silence. No phone calls. No traffic. Just miles of trails and the sound of the wind moving through the trees. I had planned the trip carefully. According to an old trail map I found online, there was a small backcountry campsite nearly 7 miles from the nearest parking area. It wasn't listed on newer maps, but several hiking forums mentioned that it still existed. The hike took most of the afternoon. By the time I reached the clearing, the sun was already dropping behind the trees. The campsite looked exactly like the photos I'd seen online. A stone fire ring, a weathered picnic table, a rusted bear-proof food locker. No tents, no vehicles, no people. At first glance, it looked abandoned. Then I noticed the fire. I walked over and held my hand above the ashes. Warm. Not slightly warm. Someone had added wood less than an hour earlier. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing answered, except the breeze. I walked around the clearing, expecting another hiker to step out from behind the trees. Nobody did. I told myself they had probably gone to collect firewood or filter water from the creek nearby. It made sense. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. I decided to wait. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. No footsteps. No voices. Nothing. Eventually, I unpacked my gear and pitched my tent about 20 feet from the fire ring. While setting up, I noticed something else. A coffee mug. It was sitting underneath the picnic table, still half full. The coffee wasn't hot anymore, but it wasn't cold either. Someone had left in a hurry. That realization stayed with me long after the sun disappeared. Dinner was quiet. The forest felt strangely empty. There were no birds, no insects, not even squirrels moving through the leaves. Every few minutes I'd stop eating because I thought I'd heard someone walking just beyond the trees. Each time I looked, nothing. After cleaning up, I locked my food away and climbed into my tent. Around midnight, I woke to the sound of footsteps. Slow, heavy, crunch, crunch, crunch. They weren't circling the campsite. They were walking directly toward my tent. I held my breath. The footsteps stopped only a few feet away. I waited for a voice. A flashlight. Anything. Instead, silence. A full minute passed. Then another. Finally, I gathered enough courage to unzip the tent just an inch. My flashlight swept across the clearing. Nothing. The fire had gone out. The picnic table was empty. The trees stood perfectly still. I stepped outside anyway. The air felt colder than it had all evening. As I turned toward the fire ring, something caught my eye. Fresh boot prints. They hadn't been there before. They started near the tree line, walked directly to my tent, stopped, then turned around and disappeared back into the darkness. Whoever made them had stood outside while I was sleeping, watching. I didn't sleep again that night. Just before sunrise, I decided I wasn't waiting another minute. I packed my gear as quickly as I could. When I reached for my backpack, I froze. Someone had placed another coffee mug beside it. This one was still steaming. I hadn't heard a single footstep. I realized we were following the wrong trail when I found the first backpack. It was hanging from a tree branch about 6 feet off the ground. Old, sun-faded, covered in dirt. At first, I thought another hiker had abandoned it months earlier. Then I noticed the shoulder strap had been sliced clean through with a knife. My younger brother, Ethan, looked at me and quietly asked, "Should we check inside?" I don't know why, but every instinct told me not to touch it. I wish we'd trusted that feeling sooner. This happened 2 summers ago, while my brother and I were hiking through Black Creek National Forest. We'd chosen a moderately difficult trail that looped through the mountains before returning to the same parking lot. The forecast was perfect. The trail was popular. Everything about the trip felt routine. Until it wasn't. About 4 hours into the hike, we reached a fork that wasn't marked on either the trail sign or our map. One path looked well maintained. The other looked newer, almost as if people had been using it recently. Someone had stacked small rocks along its entrance, making it seem intentional. I checked the GPS on my phone. No signal. "Maybe it's a shortcut," Ethan said. That single decision changed everything. For the first 20 minutes, the trail looked normal enough. Fresh footprints, broken branches, even bicycle tire marks in a few muddy patches. It didn't feel abandoned. If anything, it felt used. That should have been our first warning. Then we noticed something strange. Every few hundred yards, a strip of bright orange survey tape had been tied to a tree. At first, we were relieved. Someone had marked the route. But the farther we walked, the newer the tape became. Some pieces looked like they'd been tied only hours earlier. Then the trail suddenly widened into a clearing. In the center sat an old pickup truck. No license plates. No keys. No one around. The engine was cold, but the bed was filled with fresh-cut firewood. Someone had been working there recently. Ethan whispered, "Let's keep moving." We didn't argue. The trail beyond the clearing became noticeably quieter. The birds disappeared. Even the wind seemed blocked by the thick wall of pines surrounding us. About 10 minutes later, I heard something behind us. A single snap, like someone stepping on a dry branch. I turned immediately. Nothing. Just the empty trail. We started walking faster. A minute later, another snap. Closer. Ethan heard it too this time. Neither of us spoke. We simply kept moving. Then I noticed fresh footprints in the mud ahead. Large work boots. The strange part wasn't the prints themselves. It was the direction. They were walking toward us. Whoever made them hadn't gone deeper into the forest. They'd come from the direction we were trying to reach. Without saying a word, I looked at Ethan. He'd already reached the same conclusion. Someone was between us and the way out. We stepped off the trail, hoping to circle around. That's when we found the campsite. Not a normal campsite. There were no tents, no coolers, no camping chairs, Just 3 rough wooden shelters built from logs and tarps. Nearby sat stacks of canned food, fuel containers, animal traps, and several backpacks. Some looked old. Others looked brand new. One of them still had a luggage tag attached. Neither of us wanted to know how it had gotten there. A low whistle drifted through the trees. Another answered from somewhere farther away. Then a third. Ethan grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. They know we're here. We didn't wait to find out who they were. We ran. Branches whipped across our faces as we crashed through the undergrowth, no longer caring about staying on any trail. Behind us, voices echoed through the forest. Not shouting. Just calm, deliberate whistles, moving from one direction to another, as if they were guiding each other. After what felt like forever, we burst onto a gravel service road. A forest maintenance truck was parked nearby. The driver took one look at us and asked why we'd come from the restricted side of the forest. Restricted? He told us that section had been closed for months after officers discovered several illegal camps hidden deep in the woods. They never publicly explained who had been living there, only that hikers kept wandering into the area through unofficial trails. When I asked about the orange survey tape marking the path, the driver's expression changed. He said the Forest Service never used orange tape in that part of the park. Someone else had marked that trail. To this day, I still think about that first backpack hanging from the tree. We almost opened it. Sometimes I wonder if it was left there as a warning, or as proof that someone else's hike had ended exactly where ours almost did.